Make sure I share this out. All right, we are live, my friend.
Ooh.
Yeah, hey, we are live. Good evening, everybody. Welcome, welcome. I have an awesome guest here tonight on the Pandemic Proof Singer Series. I'm Danielle Tucker. I'm a singer, I'm a vocal coach, I'm one of the singers for the Mighty Untouchables band. And every week I've been inviting singers onto the show so we can talk about what's going on in our lives and what our plans are for the future, where we're coming from, but basically just spread some good encouragement to the music community and, come up with some ideas, put our heads together. So tonight, let me introduce my guest. This is Lindsey White from San Diego. She is a singer songwriter. Her influences range from Bob Dylan to Annie DiFranco, and her songwriting has earned her recognition from Telluride Bluegrass Festival, Kerrville Folk Festival, and American Songwriter. And I told her right before we came on that I was touching up a little eye makeup at the absolute wrong moment because I listened to her song Not a Boy and it absolutely stabbed me in the heart. And it was beautiful. So if you haven't seen her music, you've got to check it out. And I will make sure that I link to everything. Your latest album was Lights Out. It debuted at number 2 on iTunes singer-songwriter charts, and it was named #1 album of the year by Global Texan Chronicles, earned you a San Diego Music Award for Best Singer-Songwriter. You have some amazing things going on. You've done some amazing things. One thing I definitely want to talk about tonight is your organization that you started in 2018 called the Lady Brain Collective. This is something that has been brought up multiple times on the show. So I'm really, really excited to have you here talk more about that. So here we are, you and I, Lindsey White. How are
Hi,
you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on your show. I
Oh,
put on lipstick.
ooh, it looks good. Isn't
My
it weird
makeup
to
bag
like
is dustier than usual these days. So I was like, I
Totally.
think I'm going to put on some lipstick.
Uh-huh. I know I'm starting to run out of a few things. I'm like, is anyone selling makeup anywhere? I mean, I'm literally that detached from society right now. So, yeah. So, tell me what's going on in your life. What have you been up to during quarantine? All the things.
All the things. Well, quarantine has, been a ride, 6-month ride, but prior to quarantine, I was like trucking along, being my busy little self, running Lady Brain, working full time, doing my music full time, and just like, how does a person have like 4 full-time jobs all, at the same time? Somehow we all do it as creative type people who are trying to earn a living. And just like everybody else, all that kind of came crashing down. Which was so weird at first, and still is in different ways, but a lot of uncertainty with jobs and incomes. So like that layer was the scariest thing to try to figure out first, and everything else obviously took a way backseat to just making sure that we were going to be able to like stay in our house and that my wife was going
Mhm.
to be employed, like all these things we were worried about. And then once we kind of got over that hump, um, not having as many things to do was nice in the sense that I feel like I got my boundaries back and
Mhm.
like really started paying attention to like the why behind why I do things and what's really important and what matters to me, and which kind of all boils down to my relationships with the people I love, with helping the community, and then everything else can just f right off,
Right.
like.
Absolutely.
So it's weird to go through all those big transitions, especially as the world is just sort of, or the country, I should say, all these systemic problems that have been there to begin with are just sort of like glaring in everybody's face, and we can see how they're intersecting so much more clearly now. And I think a lot of that is chalked up to like having more time to look at it in the face and, you know, really kind of question the rat race that we were all in before, and like what really was that about, and you know, who what are our actions like serving, or who are they serving, and all those things. So, you know, lots of big stuff happening. I feel like things are sort of evening out now in terms of like, we know we can live in our house, and you know, my wife has her job back, and like things are steadying out, so we can kind of start focusing on some other things. But I'm not hating not being on the go all the time.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I have that gear in me anymore. My mom died in 2017, and since that happened, I just feel like I've been shedding all these like layers of like who I need to be and what success looks like, and this was just like another big old snake skin shed right off of me. So
Yeah.
it's the silver lining.
I know. I definitely, I think just knowing your background and all of the things that you're involved in, you're obviously a very driven individual, and, you know, have that capacity to be busy with a lot of things. And I know that, I mean, I feel like I'm a lot like that too. So when something like this hits and just, you know, changes gears so quickly for you, it's really, really shocking. But, I don't know if you're like me in the respect where it's like I almost immediately felt like I had to start figuring out something to do, you know, to make up for the things that had fallen away. But as time goes by, it really is like a falling away of so many things that I was just grasping onto, you know, that I felt like things like I felt like I couldn't live without. So
Yeah.
it really is an incredible time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wacky.
Yep. What did you have going on when all of this started?
I was just about to go on a short tour out to Arizona. I've been trying really hard to get, I mean, I let go of the idea of like trying to write a hit song or be famous or whatever that is, like a long ass time ago. But I still had been in my solo music career trying to like get onto the national like folk circuit. Be it like folk festivals and house concerts and that kind of thing. So that's sort of like the shape my career was taking. I had a gig to go play the Tucson Folk Festival, and I had some house concerts scheduled out there. I had to cancel them, and it was what it was. And I was working, doing some freelance writing, taking care of some kiddos on the side, and just like piecing it all together. And then it was like,
Yeah.
just like everybody. But and then obviously running Lady Brain, that was the biggest thing that changed, I would say, for putting all this work into growing this collective that's still in many ways like a little baby project, you know, that just like was getting off the ground, and then having that completely transform into something else has been a big obstacle, a big challenge, I think. I guess I should say what Lady Brain Collective even is before I talk about that. But so in 2018, I invited some women artists over that I knew, to just chat, eat brunch, and talk about what it is to be like in this town and trying to do the dang thing. And I didn't expect it to be anything more than that, but as the conversation kind of rolled on, I think people found a lot of comfort in being in a physical location together, in like a supportive setting. And then we just kind of went from there, like, hey, wouldn't it be great if we shared resources like booking agents and press contacts and that kind of thing? Wouldn't it be great if we like did some collaborations together? So it really just took off from there. But the underlying principle and why I found such joy in it was because it was encouraging us to show up for each other in physical spaces, and encouraging the community to come out to physical spaces and like really be there, sure there was like a digital element and social media and, like our website, which we do like reviews and stuff like that. And so there is obviously like an online element, but the main focal point and the part that fulfilled me was being in a space together. And we had this amazing show at the Whistle Stop, organized by Julia Sage, and it was like all female band all night, and it was just like there was just magic in the air. And that was the last thing that we did, physically in a physical space. And so since then it's been really just weird, because like knowing that the needs of all of our members were so different to begin with, but now are just like wildly different. We have some members that are trying to figure out how to teach their kids right now. We have some members, that are like trying to figure out, oh shoot, I was a full-time musician. Now what do I do with my income? Or like a musician that maybe now doesn't have any way to record themselves and they're trying to learn that whole thing. It's just the needs are so wildly different. Or members that are hyper focused on social justice right now, and music is like not even on the mind or anything creative. So trying to be like, how do I meet these people who are in wildly different places? Where do I meet them? And I started this to get off the internet. I wanted to be not online. I was feeling that toxic funk of just like wasting time on social media, comparing your career to other people on social media, not really building genuine relationships, because social media is, it's good, but there's just this veneer of like fake. And then there's also just like a time suck and just very poisonous stuff that I wanted to get away from. And then now suddenly like, oh, congratulations, you're an online event producer. And we did a couple of like streaming shows, and it's just not for me. Like I don't like the feeling of producing a live event with moving parts and all that stuff. It just gives me extreme anxiety. And like I said about meeting people's needs, our workshops, I'm trying to keep them available, but at the same time, I know people, that's not really front of mind for people right now, is like, I really need to attend that Lady Brain workshop. Like I have realistic expectations for where people's needs are. So honestly, that's been a struggle. And I know that community is desperately still needed, but trying to figure out how to facilitate it in a way that still like brings me joy is something that I'm like, to be honest, like grappling with. And, I'm doing my best to keep it going, but I'm honestly like, I'm kind of considering maybe going dark from like through election season, just because I need some time off my phone, off my laptop. And when you think about making those big moves for yourself and your self-care, then you're like, I'm abandoning my community. But you're no good to your community unless you're coming from a place of authenticity. And I don't want to just be phoning it in for because there's a month coming up that I need to create something, that doesn't feel right either. So just honestly trying to take it like a day at a time. That was a very long answer to your question, and I don't even know that I answered your question.
It's a great answer, and I think it kind of pinpoints exactly where so many of us are in our lives right now, where we want to be helpful, to the world. We want to be giving to the community, because the world is so in need. But at the same time, we're all faced with these incredibly challenging internal things from all different kinds of places to deal with. But I think the good thing about it is, since we're kind of all in this boat, there's a lot of grace being passed out, when it comes to how things were before. And, we just all have, different responsibilities and different, our minds are on a lot of different things. As you've been kind of grappling with what to do with it, what would you say is the through line that you've discovered as far as the needs of the community? What do you feel like the music community or the community you were serving is most in need of right now? Is it going back to a live in-person situation, or are there things that are
Democracy
helping?
work. Yeah.
Yeah.
I honestly, I don't know. I feel, to be honest, I feel a little out of touch with those needs. They seem to be secondary to what is happening in the world. So, I've been really working on, I mean, I've been doing this ever since I started paying a therapist, but like lowering my expectations for productivity
Mm-hmm.
and raising my expectations for accountability.
Mm-hmm.
So my friend, Karina Frost Moreno, she is they are like a powerhouse organizer activist, and they have sort of tapped me into this community of community organizers. And I am happy to sort of go outside my little creative music feminist bubble and go be a student of Black leaders and leaders of color and queer leaders, and see how they're like really, really organizing the community who is in desperate need of just basic survival tools, food, shelter, those types of things. And I started working with their mutual aid organization called We All We Got San Diego. And I do what I can when I can outside of the time I'm trying to earn a living for myself and keep a roof over my head. But learning about food justice has been just really transformative, heartbreaking in a lot of ways, radicalizing in a lot of ways. But you talk about intersectional solidarity. Food is like where all those things, all those people who have been essentially harmed by design, by the system that we have, are meeting and needing help. And that to me feels like more of an immediate need where I can be of service right now. Because everybody has to eat, that becomes not a political thing anymore. That becomes an ethical thing. Like, if we're the richest country in the world, how come so many people are lined up down the street every week to feed their families? And why are most of those people of color? Why are most of those people working people? Why are most of those people queer people? Like, you see it with your own eyeballs. And if you need an example of privilege, you have to go outside your bubble of privilege to go see it. And then since you are the one with more privilege, you have to, again, raise your expectation for accountability to help serve these groups that have been made so vulnerable, especially now by this pandemic. It's just like glaring spotlights on all the cracks in the system, So circling back to Lady Brain and what we need as women identifying artists in this town, it's kind of the same principle applied to a different situation. So I'm happy to go into these groups where I'm not leading at all, and I'm just a student, and I'm trying to help where I can. I'm trying to learn what I can, and then I can then go and better lead my community of creative women. And it's kind of the same concept of not waiting around for somebody to fix the problem. And that was sort of what Lady Brain was founded upon, is like, we can point out all the oppressive practices in the creative arts industry toward women all day long. And that doesn't necessarily mean anybody's going to do anything about it. But if we say, like, hey, why are there not women booked regularly? Why are there not queer people booked regularly on big festivals and tours in this town? We'll just create our own festival. And so that's what we were doing before this happened. Why is it so hard to get media opportunities as an independent artist? Let's just create our own. We'll write our own reviews about each other's articles. So in a sense, it's like two very different needs being served, but it's using the same practice of you have to be the one to show up for your community. And you can't just wait around and hope that it gets better. That's just not how anything works. So it's like, yeah, politics are important, your vote is important, but what are you doing after you cast your ballot to better your own tiny little bubble? And hopefully that, has a ripple effect into the world.
Yeah. Well, I think that really speaks volumes about your leadership, your ability to kind of see the parallel in that situation and know where you're needed the most. I think that's really incredible.
Trying while
Yeah.
also, not ignoring your own needs and the needs of your family. I think I got into a bad habit of doing that, my whole life, trying to produce, productive success, like trying to get to some goalpost in the future that really never existed. And then I never really got to fully savor the moment that I was in because my, tunnel vision was too far into the future. And that's, even as much as I think I, like we were saying earlier, shed that away, I'll be damned if I don't find another layer of it somewhere where I wasn't like
Yeah.
paying attention to my own, needs. And I think a lot of that too, it's the same kind of stuff with society. Like we live in a society that's like, you're a shit human garbage being if you're not working, if you're not consuming, if you're not doing. And so now I try to really get myself in the practice of like, if my body's telling me like, say no to everything else for the next 48 hours and take a nap. Like before, I think the guilt like wouldn't let me do that. But now I'm like, it's revolutionary to
Yeah.
listen to your body and say like, no, I don't need to do anything right now. I just need to listen to my body. It's telling me to sleep. And like the fact that that is like a radical idea, especially for women, I think just shows like how much undoing we have to do mentally,
Mhm.
to like really reprogram our brains to not be just like worker bee, cog in wheel, get
Mhm.
stuff, buy stuff, make stuff, like we can just seriously be and be worth it, be worth love and being loved and all those things.
Yeah. What a concept. Who knew?
It's so simple, but it's so hard apparently.
That is, that's an amazing message and something, I mean, again, you're stabbing me in the heart. I mean, it is something that we've all been given this opportunity right now to really, really listen to that voice. And I'm the same. These habits die really, really hard.
Yeah.
But it takes something so, a radical time like this to really have to confront those things in our life. But it's really important that we do it. We do it. I think that when you're in the entertainment industry and music, it does become this very, there's a weird level of narcissism in it. There's this ego thing
Course.
that drives it, and and I think it can really quickly unconsciously get a hold of you, and you don't even realize, you really think genuinely at the root of everything that you're working for the good of all, at
Mm-hmm.
some level. All the while, the most important things in your life are being neglected. And
Right.
it is such a strange time now for that to be completely, 180 turned on us, where we realize that those things are beyond meaningless, to be pursuing right now. And we're really faced with what are the actions in our lives right now that we can take that actually do have meaning and contribute to the world in
Mm-hmm.
some kind of a powerful way. I'd love to hear more about the organization and the community that it's serving.
What the mutual aid
The food, uh,
we got San
yes.
Diego? Um, it's led by amazing leaders, activist leaders, queer leaders, women of color, Black leaders, and they do grocery runs for folks who maybe can't drive, or maybe need help financially. So that's a part of it. I'm not really involved with the grocery delivery side, but they also do weekly food distributions. So every Thursday, they do a distribution every Thursday afternoon. And they're also accepting donations from the community. So in addition to partnering with other bigger food sources, they also ask the community to donate whatever they can spare, either financially or groceries. And you can donate on Wednesdays or Thursdays at the Brown Building in City Heights. And on Thursday afternoons at about 1:30, if you do need food assistance, you can it's either a walk up or a drive up, and just come get some groceries based on like about how many people there are in your family. That's kind of how they, or in your household, that's how they determine the amount of food. And they just give it away till it runs out, and it goes really quick. And then Fridays, they're also doing around 3 p.m., I think, on Fridays, mostly fruit and produce distributions as well. Again, just until the food runs out. So they're, we're always on the lookout for donations. You can go to weallwegotsd.com, I believe is the website. And if you have, if you're eating good and you're not feeling insecure about your food situation, you want to help out your neighbors, like you can go and connect with them however it makes sense for you. And yeah, it's really good. And one thing about mutual aid that I've learned since participating is it's definitely, it's not going down the same road as like your typical charity, where it's like, let's feel good about ourselves because we're giving, whatever to these poor people. It's not about that. It's about, trusting that you've got your community's back and they've got yours, and that they're going to show up for you in the same way. And just witnessing that kind of solidarity happen in real life. Again, it's like seeing firsthand people make the community that they want, the world that they want. It's not just talking about like this far off place of this like utopia, that, you hear politicians kind of just conceptualize these things about helping people, but never really actually like doing anything about it. And this is just really not giving more than you can. So like not hurting yourself in the process of giving, but also just giving what you can and showing up where you can, how you can, whether that's time, money, talent, skill, and then knowing that your community will have your back as well when you need it, knowing what everybody needs and sort of respecting and not judging people. It's been a really, really wonderful thing to be a part of, and also sad in a lot of ways. It's just like Lady Brain exists, and in its own, just by existing, it sort of points out the problems in society. You wouldn't need a women's group if women were treated fairly in the arts. Yeah. So it's the same kind of thing. It's like showing up for your community and not waiting around for somebody to fix it, but at the same time you're sort of like, hey elected people, what are we doing here? We're in a pandemic, like where's the support? So it serves two purposes in that way. And I love witnessing in real time a better type of world, led by women.
Yeah, man. I was wondering, I'm asking, what are you surprised that you're seeing? What are you surprised about the community that's showing up for assistance? Because I think for a lot of us, even throughout everything that's happened, we've been able to maintain, a certain lifestyle, pay the bills or whatever, or we've been able to continue to work, or, we just haven't been as severely impacted by everything that's gone on. And so we don't recognize the dire need that some
Mhm.
people are faced with right now. So, what's surprising you about who is showing up? And because I imagine that there's people who never thought that they'd be in a position to be in need that way, or
Mhm.
you know.
I think that's exactly it. I think with the way things have unfolded over the last several months, I think you would be hard pressed to find somebody. Well, maybe this doesn't apply to people who are just like have been well off throughout the whole thing and just like totally unaffected. But like the thought has to cross more families' minds lately of like, how many paychecks am I really away from
Yeah.
losing my house? Or, how much longer could this pandemic drag on before I seriously like started to see my cupboards a little bit emptier,
Mm-hmm.
and how many people do I really have to rely on if shit did hit the fan?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily a bad thing to start thinking like that, because the truth is like we should have been thinking like that all along. And I think we get into this habit in our society of like looking at people who are maybe houseless or maybe food insecure, and our culture teaches us that they did something to deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not true. It's just 100% not true.
Yeah.
And so I think that's been surprising and in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Just the more people that we can have looking at our community like that, then the more compassionate and accountable I think we'll all be to each other. And it's hard, especially, I'm, I'm a white person of privilege. I'm gay, but nobody would know that by looking at me. And so I know what it's like to be in that bubble. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that I have the luxury, just like a lot of white people, um, to sort of check out
Yeah.
and be like, it's not my problem, or I don't want it to be my problem today. And um, you have to kind of decide like what you're going to do with the agency that you have. Um, and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the thing that made me think about that question was I can't even tell you where I saw these comments or commentary. It was some sort of a local, I don't know, local feed that I was watching. But they were talking about um, one of the food banks, and the comments were, um, I can't believe that I'm seeing all these, new model cars pulling up, and people who they obviously don't need it because they're dressed like this or they're dressed like
Mhm.
that. And I think it makes you think, well, that really should tell you something if the people that
Mm.
you ordinarily wouldn't think are in need that way, we all potentially are just a step away from that. And it
Yeah.
definitely
And
I
it's
think,
like, with again the whole blame factor.
yeah.
Like we're so much quicker to judge a person's circumstances before, and it's really not our place. Like, and talking about the things that I've learned working with food justice, we have weekly calls where we talk about um, our principles and scenarios just like that, where let's say a family drives up and they say that they have, you know, 3 households they're picking up for, and it's 20 people. And who knows, maybe they're lying, maybe they're not, maybe this is the way they've learned to get exactly what they need, and they've run into so many obstacles and shaming people for so long that they, if you have to game the system however you game it, like it's not the place of the person offering support to police or judge any of that. We're coming, the guiding principles of the organization talk about operating from a place of abundance and trust. And the stark contrast to that, I'll show you like what I grew up with versus what I'm learning now. My mom was like super, super Christian. Like we didn't speak for 6 years. When I came out, it was like that kind of Christian. And she went to this like mega church, and they gave out the, what do you call it? Congregation. They would give out these like McDonald's gift cards for, if they ever happened to pass somebody who was like unsheltered, to be nice and give them. But attached to these cards were these little notes from the church that said, I understand that I am a sinner, and I understand that blah, 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 blah. Like a little prayer card to give to this person who just, you know, needs a little help, not a altar call.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was raised in. And to like come all the way around to like, what would Jesus really do? Jesus would not, you know, start talking about how you needed to get saved. He would say, here, I have this extra, you know, sandwich. Would you like half of it? You know, like, and that's it. And so I think the more that we stop blaming people for their circumstances and just help where we can, then, I mean, what a better world would we be in, you know?
1,000%. And the message is in the action. It's not in, you know, it's not in a flyer, you know, that you have to attach
it's not
to.
our job. That's not our job to like fix people. It's our job to just come from a place of how can I help?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I'm wondering, with where we're at in all of this, you're obviously a brilliant songwriter. How has all of this impacted that part of your life?
Again, just trying to remove the expectation. I think I've never really held myself to any kind of like schedule or anything like that when it comes to songwriting. I kind of just like strike when the iron's hot and do what I can, based on whatever I'm feeling. So whether it's like observing the world and writing a song about that, I think one of the first songs I wrote about was just about kind of the state of the world and the greed that sort of like has this country in a chokehold, and just needed to get it off my chest. I kind of like stewed on where we were at in the moment. And just like, when I really start going down that hole, I start thinking like, so much of this was preventable, and so much time has been taken from everybody just because of pure incompetency and like greed and all these things. So I was, you know, pissed about that and wrote about that. And then on a personal level, also kind of burrowing into songwriting as like a healing practice for whatever I'm dealing with. My wife and I have been on this fertility roller coaster for the last year that just happened to kind of like culminate during this time. And last week we found out like our fifth and final try wasn't successful. And so just like feeling that grief and going through it and writing about it, like I don't know what I would do without being able to write. And it doesn't matter, like I don't, if it never ends up on a CD or on Spotify, or who cares. Like I would like to give my songs, you know, a nice glossy treatment, but that's not what I'm thinking about when I'm writing. I'm just thinking about like, how am I gonna survive this moment without like drinking myself to death or something, you know? Like I'm just happy that I have a healthy tool. And then from there, being able to put those songs out, whether it's a song about the state of the world that can maybe ripple out and make somebody reconsider the way they thought about something, or maybe if it is about my infertility journey, maybe it hit somebody who, you know, I had a couple of people reach out to me and share stories that they were going through at the exact same moment. And like, I would have never known that. And so music is just so powerful in that way, and so healing in that way. And I think that's something that I wish I would have trusted in when I was younger, instead of thinking about it as this like career,
Mm,
to just be like, you have this gift that some people don't have, and you're going to be able to help yourself heal, and you're going to be able to help other people go through whatever they're going through, just because you have this ability to articulate things, you
mm.
know, and that that's enough, and it always should have been enough. And I'm happier now that I know that's enough. you know
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
if you're out there listening, that's enough.
Yeah. It is. That's definitely been a central theme to a lot of these conversations that I've had is just um, recognizing just the power in the art that you're creating. We all want to get somewhere with it. I mean, at some level, but
Yeah, to make a living, it would
yeah,
be wonderful to make a living doing what you love, whether what you love is music or, hammering a nail in something. Like, we just want to make a living at it.
yeah, yeah. And sometimes so much that we forget the impact that it has on people around us. We kind of we scoff it off as like, oh yeah, people like my stuff, but what you don't realize sometimes is in someone else's world, um, it's potentially life changing for people, and
Mm-hmm.
you've just got to um, keep putting it out there, if not for fame and glory, for you know, to give something to the world. But what is your musical background? Where are you coming from? Where did the songwriting come from for you?
I grew up in a Baptist church, small town Baptist church. That's where I like learned how to sing, and
Mhm.
then always enjoyed writing, just any kind of writing. It didn't matter. And then kind of once I figured my way around the guitar enough to like start to put some of my writing to to music, I kind of started doing that. And that was, middle school, high school. I was an athlete, so music kind of always was like a hobby. I didn't really think about doing it seriously until um, I thought I was going to be a basketball coach. My dad was a basketball coach, so my tunnel vision for my career was to be a basketball coach, and I did that for one season after college, and then I was like, nope, not for me. I am moving on from that path. And then so that was like, I had moved to San Diego to coach, and I was in my early 20s, and that's kind of really when I started getting more serious about it, in terms of like recording and doing gigs and that whole thing. So yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah.
But I can't remember a time in my life where I wasn't writing or singing or playing something.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it's not just music that you're writing. You're writing blogs and non-musical writing, I guess I should say. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I dig writing. I haven't been doing it as much lately, but it's been a side hustle that I picked up. And then when I did my corporate event marketing job, I did a lot of content creation, that kind
Mhm.
of thing. So I've done it for both money, and I also just kind of do it to do it. You had V on the show, right, Veronica May?
Yes. Uh-huh.
So we used to be a band. We used to date, and we went through a big thing together with one of her manic episodes, and I wrote a little narrative thing on what it is to be a caretaker
Mm.
in that experience. Again, just needing to get it out for myself to heal and process what I had just gone through, but also once I have this thing in my hand, just like I might as well put it out in the world, because I know there's a lot of other people in this caretaking role who maybe are just diving into the whole mental illness community for the first time, and maybe don't know what to expect. And it's like it's really easy to lose yourself in that
Mm-hmm.
uh, position. So it writing again helped me keep my identity and process in a healthy way. So
Yeah.
yeah, I enjoy writing. I want to do it more.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you definitely just listening to your song today, there are just some people that were put on this earth that have an incredible ability to craft words that are so just come from within at the
Mhm.
deepest possible level. But, and they're so true that they literally can touch the heart of anybody. Anybody can
Mhm.
relate to those feelings. That's really, really hard for some people to pull those things up. So I'm curious to know what your songwriting journey has been. And is this a learned skill? Is this just something, have you always been able to express yourself in this way? Or
Mhm.
have you always been a word craftsman?
Wordsmith. Yeah, my dad was an English teacher as well as a basketball coach, like I said.
Mhm.
But he was an English teacher, and it was like really from the get-go, uh, he instilled this love of reading in me. And I think that's really where it started. Like I was reading before I got to school, and like the library was my favorite place. I was just like this nerdy kid who just wanted to like escape to like Pippi Longstocking land, and so I think I just had this like robust vocabulary for a young person,
Yeah.
and kind of enjoyed puns and wordplay and all that stuff. So it kind of went from I'm a silly little kid making silly little poems to, hey, wait a second, I actually have something to say. And my dad had like great taste in music, and Bob Dylan was like his favorite artist. So I got nothing but Bob Dylan growing up. And once I started to really like understand what was happening with artists like Bob Dylan, what they were saying so creatively in a way, or like people like John Prine, or even
Mm.
poets like Shel Silverstein, like there's a cadence to what they do, and there's just a way that they can just like twist the word at the end to like almost like hit you with it. And I just got really into that. And then I would say like right around the time of my teenage years is really when you started seeing uh, like Jewel and
Yeah.
a lot more female artists come into their power. And I was just like, holy shit, like I could do that, and that's kind of where that was born of just like I have things to say, and why can't I do it if they are doing it?
Hmm.
And it just went from there.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Um, what would you say to somebody who, is wanting to work on the craft of writing? What do you think is a good direction? Is it, do you recommend songwriting groups, or what would your message to them be?
um I don't know. I have really bad anxiety. It's hard for me to collaborate with people. And I know like
Mhm.
so many Nashville songwriters would be like, get in a room with as many songwriters as you can and bang out as many songs as you can. And like that environment, I do not thrive in because I'm so protective and particular about words that I feel like this crazy pressure to be in a room with somebody who is like expecting me to like produce something on the fly. And it usually just like ends in disaster, which is hilarious because like a lot of people do say, hey, like you love songwriting, do you want to songwrite with me? And I'm kind of like, no.
No.
But it's not them, it's me. It's just like I'm afraid that they're gonna think that I'm this like bonkers bananas person who just like will not let go of a word onto the paper unless it's the right word.
Mm,
Because what are we doing here if we're just putting like marshmallows down on the paper like for no reason other than
yeah.
hoping like Carrie Underwood will sing it? Like I have no, I mean that'd be great, but I have no desire. That is nowhere in my thought process of like how many people are going to listen to this or how much money is it going to make or any of that. So I just have never been able to do that. What I would say has been helpful, um, with the exception of Veronica, I would say she was like the only person I could write a song with. But what has been helpful has been getting in. This was a few years ago now. Um, a few of my songwriting friends that I had sort of met through the folk scene across the country, we started this like weekly songwriting challenge. And we just opened this Dropbox that was like for everybody to drop in their songs. And like every week by a certain Tuesday or whatever, you have to have your song in there. And the rule was you'd have to like, I think we had like a private Facebook page too. And so we offered feedback on each other's songs, nothing too like critical, but it was just to get in the practice of like, yes, if you really do put your mind to it, you can like sit and receive a song,
Mm-hmm.
even if you didn't think you had something to say. And yeah, it might be shitty, it might not, but I think I ended up putting a few of them on my last album. And, you know, I would have never written them. They would have never come to me had I not held myself accountable in that way. And it's like a great way to develop your relationship with other songwriters. So it's like collaborative, but you're not necessarily writing together. You're just getting the feedback. And then I would say another cool practice has been I'm in the songwriting book club, which is run by Unison Colthurst here in San Diego. And we used to do physical get-togethers, but now it's virtual, where we'll pick a book every, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks or so. And there's no like hard rule that you have to read it. You could just like open it up and like pick a line that you like, or you could write a song based on what the cover looked like. I mean, there's that, the reading part is like secondary, but then we get together and we write songs. We perform songs that we've written inspired by this book. And it's so cool. Like, it is the coolest thing to, first of all, I just like love when art inspires art, you know, it's just amazing. But just to hear what people latch onto in another piece of art, and how that is so directly related to like the essence of who they are, you know. And to see how many different branches can sort of like blossom from this one piece of text, it's just incredible. So that's really a good practice too. Again, anything with like a loose deadline is good in terms of just making sure that you're keeping it up. Yeah.
I love those ideas. Those are amazing. I love it. And I like that you talked about just your personal needs in songwriting, because it doesn't have to be a collaboration, and you know, just having that personal thing that's within you that produces the work. It's enough. You know, it's whatever gets it onto the paper.
It's not weird if it works.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I just coming full circle. So this, you know, the purpose of doing these interviews, it's never been my intention to sugarcoat what's going on in the world and say that, you know, everything's okay and we can get back to normal. And, you know, it's really not that. I think it's just more of an opportunity for us to kind of get together and just to have a peek into everybody else's world, to see what everybody else is doing. And, you know, maybe somebody is charging ahead, maybe somebody's stepping back, but just knowing that, you know, wherever you're at, it's okay. But also so that people know that there is a community that they can reach out to if they need to. What do you want to leave everybody with? What would be your message to the music community right now?
Oh man, I don't know. Just
doesn't have to be profound.
I just, the word grace comes to mind, just and not in like a weird creepy Christian way, but just like realizing that people have shit going on right now, and like we have no idea what it is, and we have stuff going on. Like it would be fun for me to come on a podcast like this and pretend that I have like my shit together, but I'm like deeply grieving, and then personally, and then deeply grieving for the world, and like legitimately terrified. And I think everybody has these like thoughts, like really rapid fire speed thoughts going on in their head, and then are also just trying to like survive the day or get up in the morning or any number of things. And so I think for us to really approach the world like that, and, you know, not again assign blame to anybody for where they are, but just meet them where they are. And set up your boundaries enough to ask other people to meet you where you are, you know, and not try to do more than you can. Like give what you can, but not more, and ask other people to give what they can, but not more. And just sort of realize that your experience is not the experience. It's an experience, you know? And
Yeah.
And I think the more that we can do that, hopefully the better will come out of this. I mean, it has to be for something, you
Yeah.
know. It would be a shame to have this pandemic all tied up and then everybody just goes back to like not giving a shit about people.
Right.
So I would hope that we can all just, again, not be like optimistic and practice kindness in this like oblivious way, but to really, I think compassion would be a better word.
Yeah.
Show compassion for yourself and for other people.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm completely on board with your definition of grace and
Let's do
compassion,
it.
and that's a that's a great message. And I just want to acknowledge you for the work that you are doing in the community, that you have done, and I'm so extremely grateful that you were willing to come on tonight, and your willingness to share yourself and your thoughts and what's going on with you. I am so glad to have met you now and had the
Same.
opportunity to talk to you. You're amazing, just like everybody says you are. So,
Aw,
yeah. So, I will be wishing you the absolute best.
same to
And
you.
yeah, and I'm thinking of you and your wife right now. I know those are challenging things to have happen.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but again, just thank you so very much for doing this.
Fun.
Yeah, and I'll link up to the organization that you're working with, and also link to where people can get in touch with you.
Awesome.
Yeah, so everybody who watched tonight, thank you so much. We will see you back here next week. Have a great night.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.